Sometimes the biggest mistake in life is not choosing the wrong person. It is failing to recognize the right one while you still have them. Derek Sullivan did not expect to feel nervous that afternoon. In fact, he almost did not come. The wedding was being held at a luxury resort overlooking the Pacific Ocean just outside Monterey, California. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze. Waves rolled toward the shore a few hundred feet away. Everything looked like something from a magazine. Elegant white chairs lined the ceremony area. Fresh flowers covered nearly every corner of the venue. Guests dressed in designer suits and expensive dresses moved between cocktail tables, while servers carried trays of sparkling water and champagne. Derek adjusted his jacket and looked around. Not bad, his girlfriend Ashley said as she stepped beside him. At 28, Ashley was 12 years younger than him. She smiled while looking toward the ocean. Who spends this much money on a wedding? Derek shrugged. Apparently someone who can afford it. Ashley laughed. You sound jealous. Trust me, I am not. At least that was what he told himself. The truth was more complicated. 3 years earlier, Derek had left Monica Reed. After 15 years together, he convinced himself they had simply grown apart. He wanted something different, something exciting, something new. At the time, it had seemed like the obvious choice. Most of his friends even supported him. You deserve to be happy, they had said. Maybe they believed it. Maybe he did too. But standing there now, watching guests arrive for Monica's wedding, he felt something he could not quite explain. Curiosity. Maybe that was it. He had not seen Monica in almost 3 years. Not once. No calls. No messages. No surprise encounters. She had moved to Atlanta after the divorce and seemed to disappear from his world entirely. Derek occasionally heard small updates through mutual friends. She was doing well. She had started new projects. She looked happy. That was about it. Nothing remarkable. Nothing that made him think twice. Then 6 months ago he learned she was getting married. Even then, he had not paid much attention. Until he received the invitation. Ashley pointed toward the ceremony entrance. I guess we are about to find out who the lucky guy is. Derek smirked. Probably some accountant or consultant. Ashley laughed. That sounds mean. I did not mean it like that. But he did. At least a little. Deep down, Derek expected Monica to marry someone ordinary. Someone comfortable. Someone safe. The music suddenly changed. Conversations quieted. Guests turned toward the entrance path leading down from the resort. Derek folded his arms and looked up. Then he stopped breathing for a second. Monica appeared first. She looked elegant, calm, genuinely happy. Not pretending, not performing. Happy. Derek stared. She looked nothing like the woman he remembered from the final months of their marriage. There was confidence in the way she carried herself now. Then the groom stepped into view beside her. The entire crowd seemed to react at once. Whispers spread across the ceremony. Several guests exchanged stunned looks. Derek's expression disappeared completely, because he knew exactly who that man was. And the moment he recognized him, everything inside him changed. The groom's name was Benjamin Hayes. Derek had seen him on magazine covers. He had heard investors mention him during business conferences. A few years earlier, Benjamin had quietly built one of the most respected private investment firms in the country. Not flashy, not loud, just successful. The kind of man people trusted when billions of dollars were involved. Derek stared at the altar. No way, he muttered. Ashley looked over. What? That is Benjamin Hayes. She frowned. Who? Derek almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it felt impossible. You seriously do not know who he is? Ashley shook her head. Derek looked back toward the front. Trust me, everybody important here knows who he is. Around them, guests continued whispering. A few people were clearly surprised. Others looked like they already knew. Monica and Benjamin stood together beneath a white floral arch overlooking the ocean. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold. The scene looked peaceful, simple, real. Derek hated how natural. They looked together. The officiant began speaking. Derek barely listened. His mind kept drifting backward. 15 years. That was how long Monica had been part of his life. He remembered their first apartment. The old Honda they shared. The weekends spent grocery shopping and arguing about paint colors for rooms they could barely afford. Monica had been there before the promotions, before the bigger house, before people started recognizing his name. She had celebrated every small win, every step forward. Somehow, over time, he stopped noticing. That thought bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Ashley leaned closer. You are being really quiet. Derek forced a smile. Just thinking. About your ex-wife? He did not answer immediately. Ashley crossed her arms. That is a yes. The ceremony continued. Monica laughed softly at something Benjamin whispered. Derek saw it happen. A small moment. Nothing dramatic. Yet it stayed with him. Because he remembered that laugh. He used to hear it all the time. Somewhere along the way, he stopped being the reason for it. The officiant asked the couple to share personal vows. Benjamin went first. His voice was calm. Steady. The thing I admire most about you is not what you have accomplished, he said. It is who you are when nobody is watching. You make people feel valued. You make difficult days easier. You remind me what matters. Monica's eyes filled with emotion. Several guests smiled. Derek looked down at the ground for a second. Those words felt familiar. Years ago, he could have said the exact same thing about Monica. The difference was that Benjamin still appreciated it. When Monica spoke, the entire ceremony grew quiet. You met me during a season when I was rebuilding my life, she said. You never asked me to be anyone other than myself. You never treated my past like a problem that needed fixing. You simply showed up. Day after day. Benjamin smiled. Monica smiled back. It was not the kind of smile people force for photographs. It was the smile of someone who felt safe. Derek suddenly realized something uncomfortable. For 3 years, he had assumed Monica's life after the divorce was probably ordinary. Maybe. Even lonely. Standing there now, watching her begin this new chapter, he understood how wrong he had been. And for the first time since arriving at the wedding, a question entered his mind that he could not ignore. How had he let someone like Monica walk away in the first place? The reception began just after sunset. Strings of lights glowed above the outdoor terrace while the ocean stretched into the distance like a sheet of dark glass. Guests laughed, music played softly, and servers moved between tables carrying dinner plates and drinks. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Derek sat through most of it feeling like he was watching someone else's life. Across the room, Monica and Benjamin stopped at each table to greet family and friends. People genuinely seemed happy for them. Not impressed. Not intimidated. Happy. There is a difference. Derek had spent years around successful people. He knew how to recognize forced admiration. This was not that. You keep staring, Ashley said quietly. Derek looked away. I am not staring. You absolutely are. She took a sip of water. I have never seen you this distracted. Derek leaned back in his chair. Maybe she was right. Maybe that was because every few minutes another piece of the puzzle appeared. During dinner, an older man sitting nearby introduced himself to Derek. Beautiful wedding, isn't it? It is, Derek replied. The man smiled. Monica deserves it. Derek nodded politely. You know her well? Very well. We worked together on community housing projects in Atlanta. Derek looked surprised. Community housing? She helped launch several programs over the last few years. The man chuckled. You should have seen her. Half the city knew her name before long. Derek blinked. Nobody had ever mentioned that part. Another guest joined the conversation. My daughter got one of the scholarships her organization funded. Really? Derek asked. Absolutely. Changed her life. The woman smiled toward Monica across the room. She never talks about it publicly, though. That is just who she is. Derek sat there quietly after that. During their marriage, Monica was always helping people. Bringing meals to neighbors. Volunteering on weekends. Remembering details everyone else forgot. Back then he thought those things were nice. Small things. Looking around now, he was beginning to understand they were never small. Benjamin eventually stood to make a toast. The room grew quiet. He raised his glass and looked directly at Monica. People often ask me why I fell in love with her. A few guests laughed softly. Benjamin smiled. The answer is simple. She is the most genuine person I have ever met. Monica lowered her eyes and smiled. Benjamin continued. She celebrates other people when nobody is watching. She shows up when things are difficult. She makes everyone around her better. Derek felt something twist inside his chest. Years ago, he would have agreed with every word. Somewhere along the way, he stopped appreciating those qualities because he assumed they would always be there. Benjamin had not made that mistake. As applause filled the terrace, Monica reached for Benjamin's hand. He squeezed it gently. Nothing dramatic. Nothing flashy. Just a simple moment between two people who clearly trusted each other. Derek looked away toward the ocean. For the first time that evening, he stopped comparing Benjamin to himself. Instead, he found himself asking a much harder question. What if Monica had never needed someone better than him? What if she had simply needed someone who valued what she already was? Later that evening, after most of the formal speeches ended, guests spread out across the resort. Some gathered near the fire pits overlooking the ocean. Others drifted toward the dance floor. The atmosphere felt relaxed now, comfortable, the kind of evening people would remember for years. Derek stepped away from the crowd and found himself standing near a stone walkway that overlooked the water. The cool Pacific breeze moved through the palm trees above him. For a few minutes, he simply watched the waves. "Mind if I join you?" a voice asked. Derek turned and saw a familiar face from the reception. It was the man who had mentioned working with Monica in Atlanta. "Sure," Derek said. The man leaned against the railing. "Beautiful night." "It is." A few seconds passed. Then the man smiled. "You were married to Monica for a long time, right?" Derek nodded. 15 years. That is what I heard. Derek looked back toward the reception area where music floated through the evening air. "Sounds like you know her pretty well." The man laughed softly. "Not as well as some people, but I have seen what she built." Derek remained quiet. "When she first came to Atlanta, hardly anyone knew who she was," the man continued. "She rented a small apartment, drove an old car, worked crazy hours." Derek frowned slightly. Nobody had ever told him any of this. Doing what? Community programs at first, then education initiatives, then leadership development projects. The man shook his head and smiled. "Honestly, I do not know how she managed it all." Derek stared toward the lights of the reception. "She never mentioned any of that." "That sounds like Monica." The man laughed again. "She never talks much about herself." Across the lawn, Monica was speaking with a group of guests. Benjamin stood nearby, listening while she told a story that made everyone laugh. Derek found himself watching without meaning to. She looked lighter now, more relaxed, like someone who had stopped carrying a heavy weight years ago. The man beside him followed his gaze. "You know what impressed me most about her?" Derek shook his head. "She never talked badly about anyone." Derek looked over. "What do you mean?" "After the divorce." The man shrugged. "People asked questions. People always do. She never blamed anybody, never played the victim. She just focused on moving forward." Those words landed harder than Derek expected, because he remembered those years differently. He remembered assuming Monica was angry, hurt, bitter. It never occurred to him that she might have chosen something else entirely. Growth, healing, a new life. "Benjamin is lucky," the man said. Derek swallowed. "Yeah." Then again, the man added, "I think they are both lucky." After the man walked away, Derek stayed where he was. The music continued in the distance. Laughter echoed across the terrace. For the first time all night, he started thinking less about Benjamin and more about himself. 3 years ago, he had been convinced he was chasing happiness. He thought excitement and novelty would automatically create a better future. Looking back now, the certainty he once felt seemed strangely fragile. Ashley eventually found him near the railing. "There you are." Derek forced a smile. "Sorry." She studied his face. "You have been somewhere else all night." He looked toward Monica one more time, then toward the ocean. "Maybe I have." And deep down, he was beginning to realize that the story he had been telling himself about the divorce for the last 3 years might not have been true at all. The evening moved on, but something had shifted inside Derek. He could feel it. The reception was louder now. Guests filled the dance floor. Music drifted across the terrace. Laughter echoed beneath the string lights hanging above the tables. Yet somehow everything felt distant, like he was hearing it from another room. Ashley had joined a group of guests near the bar, leaving Derek alone with his thoughts. That was probably for the best. He was not exactly great company at the moment. A server passed by carrying a tray of coffee. Derek grabbed a cup and wandered toward a quieter corner of the property. From there he could still see the reception area. Monica and Benjamin were talking with guests near the center of the terrace. Every few minutes someone stopped to congratulate them. What caught Derek's attention was not Benjamin's reputation anymore. It was the way Benjamin looked at Monica. Respect, admiration, appreciation, simple things, important things. The longer Derek watched, the more uncomfortable he became. Not because Benjamin was richer, not because he was successful, because he seemed to value the very qualities Derek had stopped noticing years ago. "Mind if I sit here?" Derek looked up. A woman in her 60s stood nearby holding a coffee cup. "Go ahead." She smiled and sat down. After a few moments, she glanced toward Monica. "Beautiful bride." Derek nodded. "Yeah." I am Caroline, by the way. Derek. Her eyes widened slightly. Derek Sullivan? He forced a small smile. That obvious? Caroline laughed softly. Monica mentioned you once. Derek was surprised. She did. Not much. Caroline shook her head. She was never the type to spend energy talking about old relationships. That answer somehow made him feel worse. Caroline continued watching the celebration. I met Monica 4 years ago. In Atlanta? Yes. She smiled. Back then she was working 12-hour days and still finding time to help everybody else. Derek listened quietly. One winter, Caroline continued, my husband got sick. We were overwhelmed. Monica organized meals for us without ever making a big deal about it. She laughed. Half the time she helped people without them even knowing. Derek stared into his coffee. That sounded exactly like the Monica he used to know. The difference was that everyone here seemed to appreciate those things. He remembered all the times Monica volunteered on weekends while he complained about having less time together. He remembered rolling his eyes when she spent hours helping friends move, organize fundraisers, or support neighbors. At the time, he thought she cared too much about everyone else. Looking back now, maybe she simply cared more than most people. Caroline stood up and adjusted her jacket. You know, she said, Benjamin loves her for the same reason everyone else does. Derek looked up. What reason is that? Caroline smiled warmly. Because she makes people feel seen. Then she walked away. Derek sat there for a long time after that. Across the terrace, Monica was laughing with friends while Benjamin stood beside her. The scene looked effortless, natural, happy. 3 years ago, Derek convinced himself he was leaving behind a marriage that no longer worked. Tonight, for the first time, he started wondering whether the real problem had never been the marriage at all. Maybe the problem was that he stopped seeing the person standing right in front of him. As the night went on, Derek noticed something he had completely missed earlier. Nobody at the wedding seemed impressed by Monica because of who she married. They respected her because of who she was. That realization followed him everywhere. It followed him when guests shared stories about her. It followed him when he watched people walk across the terrace just to congratulate her. It followed him when he saw how naturally she moved through every conversation. She was not trying to impress anyone. She did not have to. Near the dessert tables, Derek found himself speaking with another guest. This time it was a younger man who introduced himself as Marcus. How do you know the couple? Derek asked. Marcus smiled. Monica was my mentor. Derek looked surprised. Your mentor? A few years ago. Marcus nodded. I had just started a nonprofit project and honestly had no clue what I was doing. He laughed. She spent hours helping me figure things out. Derek glanced across the terrace. Monica was standing near the dance floor talking with a group of relatives. She never mentioned any of this. Marcus smiled. That sounds about right. Then he lowered his voice slightly. The funny thing is, most people here have a story like that. Derek frowned. What do you mean? Ask around. Marcus gestured toward the crowd. Half these people have been helped by her in one way or another. After Marcus walked away, Derek did exactly that. One guest talked about career advice Monica gave her during a difficult year. Another mentioned a scholarship program she helped create. Someone else described how Monica connected local businesses with community projects. Different stories. Same pattern. She showed up. She listened. She helped. Derek stood quietly as those stories piled up. The more he heard, the more uncomfortable he became. Not because Monica had changed, because she had not. Those qualities were always there. He just stopped paying attention to them. Across the terrace, the band started playing a slower song. Several couples moved onto the dance floor. Benjamin offered his hand to Monica. She smiled and accepted it. They joined the others beneath the lights. Nothing about the moment looked staged. No dramatic gestures. No performance. Just two people enjoying the evening together. Ashley eventually appeared beside Derek again. You have barely spoken for an hour. He forced a smile. Sorry. She studied him carefully. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. What? I asked if you were happy. Derek opened his mouth, then stopped. The strange thing was that he did not know how to answer. 3 years ago, he was absolutely certain he was making the right decision. Tonight, that certainty felt very far away. Ashley looked toward the dance floor. I think you are seeing your past differently now. Derek followed her gaze. Monica laughed at something Benjamin said. The look on her face was impossible to fake. She looked peaceful, content, whole. Derek slowly nodded. Maybe I am. And standing there beneath the lights with the sound of the ocean in the background, he finally understood something that had taken him years to learn. Monica had not become valuable after the divorce. She had always been valuable. The only difference was that now he could see it. And by the time he finally did, she belonged to someone else. The reception slowly settled into that comfortable part of the evening when people stopped thinking about schedules and simply enjoyed being together. The formal events were over. The speeches were finished. The pressure was gone. Guests gathered around small tables overlooking the ocean while others stayed near the dance floor. Monica and Benjamin moved easily between conversations, never rushing anyone. Derek watched them from a distance. The strange thing was that he no longer felt shocked. That feeling had faded hours ago. What remained was something quieter, something heavier, understanding. Near one of the outdoor lounges, Derek overheard Benjamin speaking with a group of guests. He was not talking about investments or business. He was talking about Monica. She is the reason half our projects work as well as they do, Benjamin said with a smile. People always give me more credit than I deserve. Several guests laughed. One woman shook her head. That sounds exactly like something Monica would say about you. Benjamin laughed too. Then maybe we are a good match. It was such a simple exchange. Yet Derek could not stop thinking about it. Years ago, conversations between him and Monica often centered around his goals, his deadlines, his career. Monica supported everything. She celebrated every success. Looking back, he could not remember the last time he had asked enough questions about her dreams. That realization stung. Ashley joined him again, carrying 2 glasses of sparkling water. She handed him one. You look exhausted. Derek accepted the glass. Maybe I am. Ashley hesitated before speaking. Can I tell you something honestly? Derek nodded. You have spent this entire night looking at Monica like you were trying to solve a puzzle. He let out a small laugh. Maybe I am. Ashley looked toward the dance floor. I do not think the puzzle is Monica. Those words stayed with him after she walked away. Maybe she was right. Maybe the puzzle was himself. Maybe the real question was why it had taken seeing Monica happy with someone else to recognize what he once had. Later in the evening, a slideshow began playing on large screens near the terrace. Photos from different stages of Monica and Benjamin's relationship appeared one after another. Family gatherings, volunteer events, road trips, community projects, everyday moments. Nothing flashy, nothing designed to impress people. The audience smiled as each photograph appeared. Derek noticed something in nearly every picture. Monica looked exactly the same. Not physically, emotionally. She looked kind, present, engaged. She looked like the woman he met years ago. The woman who believed in people. The woman who always showed up. The woman he somehow convinced himself would always be there no matter what. A few feet away, Benjamin slipped an arm around Monica's shoulders as they watched the slideshow together. She leaned her head briefly against him and smiled. Derek looked away, not because he was angry, because he finally understood something he had avoided for years. Monica did not become extraordinary after the divorce. She had been extraordinary during the marriage too. He had simply stopped noticing. And once that truth settled into his mind, there was no way to ignore it anymore. For the first time all night, Derek realized the hardest part was not watching Monica move on. The hardest part was realizing she had always been exactly the person he needed, and he was the one who chose to let her go. By the time the reception entered its final hours, the energy had softened. The dance floor was still full, but people moved a little slower now. Conversations felt more personal. The ocean breeze carried the sound of music across the terrace while small groups gathered around fire pits overlooking the water. Derek stood alone near the edge of the property, watching the celebration continue without him. A strange calm had replaced the shock he felt earlier. The truth was finally settling in. Across the terrace, Monica and Benjamin were greeting guests who were preparing to leave. Every interaction looked effortless. They thanked people for coming. They laughed. They listened. Nothing about it felt forced. Derek remembered a time when he and Monica used to host family dinners together. She was always the one making sure everyone felt comfortable. She remembered names, birthdays, little details that mattered. Back then he saw those things as ordinary. Now he realized they never were. Ashley eventually walked over and stood beside him. Neither of them spoke right away. I think I understand now, Derek finally said. Ashley looked at him. Understand what? He watched Monica across the terrace. Why this bothers me so much. Ashley waited. For years I told myself the marriage ended because we wanted different things. He let out a slow breath. Maybe that was easier than admitting I stopped appreciating what I already had. Ashley was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. That sounds more honest. Derek could not argue with that. A few minutes later, guests began gathering near the exit path leading toward the resort entrance. Some wanted photographs with the newlyweds before leaving. Others wanted one final conversation. Monica and Benjamin stood together beneath the lights, smiling as people approached them. Then something happened that Derek did not expect. Monica looked across the terrace and noticed him standing there. For a brief moment, their eyes met. She smiled. Not a complicated smile. Not a sad smile. Just a warm, polite smile. The kind you give someone who was once important in your life. Derek felt his chest tighten. Because there was no anger in it. No bitterness. No resentment. Monica looked free. Truly free. That was when the regret finally arrived. Not because she had married a successful man. Not because she had built a good life. It arrived because he could see she was genuinely happy. And for the first time, he understood that happiness had nothing to do with proving him wrong. She was not thinking about the divorce anymore. She was not trying to win. She had simply moved forward. Benjamin walked over to Monica and quietly handed her a jacket as the evening air cooled. She smiled and thanked him. Such a small gesture. Yet Derek noticed it immediately. Care often looks ordinary when it is real. Watching them together, he finally understood something he should have learned years ago. The most valuable people in life are not always the loudest, the youngest, or the most exciting. Sometimes they are the people who consistently show up, day after day, with kindness, loyalty, and genuine care. Derek stood there beneath the lights as the celebration continued around him, knowing there was no way to go backward. Some lessons arrive late, and some regrets stay with you because they are true. The reception was nearly over when Derek finally made a decision. Most of the guests had already left. The music had softened. Staff members quietly cleared tables while the last groups lingered near the ocean. Monica and Benjamin stood near the entrance path, thanking people as they departed. The evening felt peaceful now. Complete. Derek looked around one last time. 3 years ago, he would have walked away without saying anything. Tonight felt different. Ashley had already gone back to the hotel. She understood he needed a few minutes alone. Derek slowly crossed the terrace. As he approached, Monica noticed him first. Derek. Her voice was calm. Friendly. Benjamin turned and offered a polite smile. Good to see you again. Derek nodded. You too. For a second, nobody spoke. The ocean rolled quietly in the background. Finally, Derek looked at Monica. I wanted to congratulate you. Monica smiled. Thank you. He glanced between them. You both look happy. Benjamin reached for Monica's hand. We are. There was no arrogance in the answer. No need to prove anything. Just honesty. Derek nodded slowly. Then he took a breath. I also wanted to say something else. Monica waited. For a long time, I told myself a story about what happened between us. He looked down briefly before meeting her eyes again. I convinced myself that moving on automatically meant moving forward. Monica listened without interrupting. Tonight made me realize I spent years focusing on what I thought was missing instead of appreciating what I already had. The words felt heavier once they were spoken out loud. Monica was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled gently. We were both different people back then. Derek laughed softly. Maybe, but I still should have appreciated you more. Monica's expression softened. Thank you for saying that. No anger. No resentment. Just acceptance. Somehow that made the moment even more meaningful. Benjamin glanced toward the waiting car at the end of the path. We should probably head out soon. Monica nodded. Then she looked back at Derek. I hope you find what you were looking for. Derek smiled. This time it was genuine. I think I finally understand what that is. They exchanged a final goodbye. Nothing dramatic. No grand speech. No second chance. Some stories are not about getting another opportunity. They are about learning from the one you lost. Derek watched as Monica and Benjamin walked away together beneath the lights. They looked comfortable, happy, certain, and for the first time all evening, he felt no jealousy, only clarity. As their car disappeared into the night, a simple truth stayed with him. In everyday life, people often chase excitement while overlooking consistency. They chase novelty while ignoring loyalty. They focus on what is new instead of valuing what is real. The lesson was not about marriage. It was not even about relationships. It was about gratitude. The people who care for us, support us, and stand beside us rarely arrive with fanfare. Their value is easy to miss when we become distracted by other things. Monica did not win because she married someone successful. She won because she never stopped being herself. And Derek's greatest regret was not losing her. It was realizing too late how much she had always been worth. Sometimes the most important lesson life teaches is also the simplest. Appreciate good people while they are still part of your story.